Davina, can you just tell us about how patient-centeredness is a value for you, and how that gets sort of imbued into your teams?
There is no digital therapeutic without the patient, right? And so what's really important, and where design and UX research, what they can really bring to the table is, is considering how to meet the patient where they are and how to listen to what they need, which I'll tell you right now is, I guarantee, just isn't what your assumptions are if you are not a patient who is not struggling with that disease, right? Like, I mean, and even somebody who is a clinician who treats that disease, unless they have that disease, really needs to be all ears and lose any fixed thinking, or any sort of biases they may have about what they think is going to work for somebody. It's a real, because we were always building MVPs and getting it into pilots and then trying something out and learning and iterating, it's a rare opportunity to be able to consider how you can support the patient. First of all, how you can support patients who have different learning styles, who like to take information in different ways. Somebody might like to be very handheld through their treatment, and somebody might want all the information so that they can learn for themselves. And not a lot of young digital therapeutics companies have the budget or time or resources to approach it from all the angles. Like, you might find that with the Novartises of the world, or somebody who really has huge budgets and can say, we think we have people with 3 main learning styles, and we're going to give them a short survey up front and figure out what those are, and then deliver them the care depending on how they learn. So we're really trying to ride a line of being able to deliver something to a wide variety of people who, for instance, might be dealing with relapsing, remitting multiple sclerosis, right? Just because you have that diagnosis, it's not the entirety of who you are as a person. You might be somebody who has this disease who really wants to be told what to do, 1, 2, 3. You might be somebody who has this disease who really prefer to read through a lot of the literature yourself and make up your own mind. But that's not something that we have the leisure of doing often at companies where we're trying to get something into a clinical trial. We need to understand how it functions in the clinical trial, and ultimately you want to get it into the market. So speaking to users as much as you possibly can, getting their voices into the product, making sure that you hear about how they think about the disease, how they think about treatment, what they struggle with, what their doubts are, what their worries are. And the more you can build that voice into the product, and Jillian can tell so many stories about how this really works, they feel supported, and they feel oftentimes like this, this digital tool, they know it's not talking to them, but if they feel that that it understands them, that there's a voice and tone, or that this isn't just somebody telling you what you should do, but it's somebody who really, it's a tool that sounds like it gets where they're coming from, then you will have the power to keep bringing them back into it, hopefully. And then that engagement that you're developing, hopefully, and with the type of thinking and the thought that Tim and his teams can put into it, it drives you towards that mechanism of action. And then that's the goal, is to get the outcomes at the end. And so I just can't emphasize enough speaking directly to actual patient panels who have that, and even more so than that, and Jillian, I'll hand it over to you, but developing deep relationships with these patients and even co-designing with them.
Yeah, Davina, I couldn't agree with you more. And just to really piggyback off of that thinking, it reminds me of quoting Adam Ghazali. He said, "When we create new technology, does it have the power to enhance what makes us humans, or does it degrade us?" And really thinking and aligning with that, it's how do you holistically elevate the entire person, inside the therapy and outside. So we've been talking a lot about these MOAs, mechanisms of action. This is the therapy is at the center of our digital therapeutics, and it's for incredible reasons. And really, it's, can you put the person back at the center as well. So they're driving it. So you have these digital therapeutics and PDTs, that are very clinically efficacious with these MOAs. But when designing a PDT, maybe we can also translate around these MOAs, not just that purely digital experience of that therapy, but what about accounting for that entire narrative of the patient, the person around it? And, after establishing relationships with hundreds and hundreds of people over the past, almost 5 years now, I started to realize just that very thing, that if you can really understand the people who live with these chronic diseases inside and out, then that story, those values, and understanding what those struggles are, that's not part of the MOA necessarily, but it's one of the most important aspects with living with a chronic disease to represent. So how do you create this like multimodal experience, very personalized experience that lets people tell their story, tell their narrative, hear and identify from others, maybe some peers, maybe coaches, maybe it's just purely through the content, but feel very understood in this extremely empathetic way. I think this is the most empowering aspects of my job, and what I've brought into our PDTs is building these relationships, hiring our patients as contractors, is creating these panels with them and bringing their voice into the product. They're creating the content. They're telling these stories. Their voices, you can hear them in our products. You can see their faces, allowing potentially even our customers to become a part of our patient advocacy program. So it's not just after they're done with the therapeutic, then maybe they can start empowering other peers as well. So I think integrating that into a PDT, wrapping around these MOAs, engaging a person that in that kind of way can really drive towards clinical outcomes, just threading that needle. How do you plug into people's lives in that time and space when they're using the digital therapy, and then how you can truly humanize that experience potentially. And I just don't think technology can do it all on its own. So it's really trying to fit into people's lives in different ways. Everybody manifests these chronic diseases in different ways. They might have the same disease, but they're very, very different the way they manifest in their body physically, the way they emotionally are responding to these diseases. It's very unique. And putting that voice into the product first, so they can first experience that, and then doing that hard work so they can almost, it's deregulating maybe something that maybe they don't want to go into the product because they feel shame or stigma, or they're just highly frustrated and alone, making them understand that you're not alone, that there is somebody there. I think that this is what can move the needle, and understanding how multifaceted that these diseases are. You can't just, I think about it, you can't just say, here's a diet plan and here's the exercises you're going to do. Or here are your triggers, for substance use disorder. Here, let's outline your triggers. Okay, now you know them. It's really having this kind of behavioral support, if you will. And so how do you holistically address these human needs in a digital platform? And I really think if you can holistically crack that code to address this across many chronic diseases, that this is, we're on the cutting edge in designing something, that we can change the way we care for patients by really putting them first. I just think, how do we leverage technology and supporting them through the emotions, and understanding where they're at first in the most personalized aspect. It just is a game changer. So tactically, we've brought people through into the product, doing co-design, designing features with them, having them write content, having them read aloud the MOA, maybe some of the therapy lessons. It's just we've developed a lexicon for, disease specific types, and the way people talk about the disease and think about it. That's very much outside of whether, if you have the disease or not. It's very unique. There's so many idiosyncrasies, and we've really put that learning and that understanding in the very forefront to truly understand the patient's experience, why they fail, and taking that lesson and building it into the program.